With Mayor Sarah Pierce today for our regular meeting preview. Thanks for coming in, Mayor.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you said light agenda tonight, but we do have a biggie coming up, and that's the budget.
Yes, indeed. So I anticipate the council will be provided, according to the city manager, with a copy of the proposed budget at some point this week, and then that'll of course be made public. And then it's time for the council to get to work and see how, if any changes can be made to bring any proposed tax increase down.
Do you have any idea what it may look like?
I anticipate we'll see something similar to what was presented last year, and then if people recall, the council was able to do some work to get that down, that percentage down. So I anticipate that likely will be presented with the same sort of scenario this year, but of course we'll know more in the days to come.
Are the basic factors driving the budget? Has anything changed dramatically?
I don't think nothing's changed dramatically. Of course, you still have the major costs in the budget, obviously, with personnel. There haven't been any major changes there, but I think the city manager understands, of course, the financial situation that the city's in, but also at the same time not putting a undue burden on the taxpayers. So I think he's been trying to strike a balance with that, working closely with the department heads to see where we might be able to trim things a bit, but I assume, of course, the council, this is when we really dig in and, as Jeff said last week, earn our money, earn our salary. So it's one of the biggest jobs that we have as council members to look at the budget, refine things, and, of course, take feedback from the city residents on things that they'd like to see changed.
In your mind, what's acceptable tax-wise? A small increase?
Ideally, a small increase on the taxpayers. I believe last year we were able to get it down to 8% or so. You want to be mindful not to kick the can down the road and not have a tax increase that's too low, but then again also not have something that's too high that's going to hurt people on fixed incomes. We of course need to be able to keep up with inflation and the increased cost of doing things, but again, my concern is for those people who are on fixed incomes and wouldn't want to be hit with such a significant increase all at once.
Yeah. Has the city been able to maintain infrastructure and services the way it's been going recently?
I think we certainly, that's one of the priorities, to maintain infrastructure. We obviously had a significant investment in infrastructure with the ARPA funds that we got, so that was a big help to us, but that's one of the, obviously, the priorities is to keep up on the things that we already have and try not to add too much more to the city in terms of things or facilities that we can't afford to maintain.
Yeah. That big water main failure a couple of years ago, that's an example of how infrastructure can go south in a hurry.
Yes.
Is there much you can do to prevent that sort of thing?
Well, I think you try to keep up on it as much as possible, of course, and then prioritize, okay, these are the areas that are in the most need of attention, and these are the areas that would have the potential to fail in the most near future. So you try to prioritize things in terms of how old they are and how badly in need of repair they are. And I think the city manager's done a good job of that along with staff.
Well, the reservoir is a good example of infrastructure that you got to maintain or replace or do something with from time to time. The most recent judgment was it might have to be replaced.
Correct.
Now there's a possible other measure that could be a lot cheaper.
Yes. So after we had our initial work session on this, and basically the council was presented with the fact that we're probably going to need to demolish and rebuild the reservoir, our staff heard from a company that said, hey, we may have an option for you guys to look at that would be much less costly, and that would involve a type of lining that would go in the reservoir to prevent any kind of leakage. So at our last work session, we got an update on this from our water department and from our engineering department. This company is going to come at no cost to the city and go take a look inside the reservoir and see if this might in fact be a fix.
Yeah. When I first heard about that, the first thing that came into my mind is fix a flat.
Yes, yes. I think somebody brought that up at the work session, actually.
Do you have any, would this entail divers going inside or something that is injected? Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure entirely exactly what the mechanics of it would be.
Mm-hmm. What would the cost-wise? What would be that vis-a-vis?
Cost-wise, I think it'd be about about half of what we were looking at to replace the reservoir. So it's very significant savings if it ends up working out.
Yeah, Any timeline to make a decision on that, do you think?
I think within the next month or so, I think you'll likely see that company that's offering that sort of alternative up here taking a look at the reservoir, seeing if we would be a good fit. I guess for this company, this would be the biggest project they have ever done, so I think they're probably eager to, show that they can do something like this. If this works in Watertown, it's probably a big feather in their cap. So as I said, they're coming up at no cost to the city to take a look at it.
Demolishing and rebuilding the reservoir sounds massively disruptive. How would that work for the city's water supply?
Well, according to the city manager, residents wouldn't experience any sort of disruption, so that's good to know.
Okay. So we're up at Thompson Park a lot today in our discussions, and there's a water issue up there currently, right?
Yes, there's an issue at the golf course area. The rest of the park is okay in terms of water and access to water, but there was an issue with backflow protection. It's being rectified, hopefully by midweek. Important to note that while the restaurant's unfortunately unable to be open, the course is still open to walkers, and there is a portable restroom on site, so people will have access to use the facilities if they're out there golfing. But this is something that the city manager hopes to have rectified by midweek.
Okay, backflow. Have any idea what that is? I don't really.
An issue, I wouldn't know enough to get into the specifics of it, but it impacts obviously the water use, the restroom use, and it's apparently fixable by Wednesday, as I said, so not too big of a project to undertake, but something that we're working on addressing.
Okay. Well, spring weather has sprung. Do you have any feel for what the DPW is engaged in terms of spring projects, cleanup, sweepers?
They've been out doing that. They've been out doing tree maintenance. A good place to look at what the DPW's been up to is the city manager's report issued every couple of weeks, and they detail all the activities of the DPW. So certainly working on getting the city spruced up following winter. That's a big undertaking. So that's one of the main things that they've been working on in recent weeks.
Okay. Very good. Anything else you would like to touch on?
I don't think so. Glance at my agenda here. I think we covered the main topics.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, we'll follow the council meeting and see what comes out of it.
All right,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
in, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Yep.